I'm going to start from the top over here, right here. And put down the black. As I said before, I put the heavy part of it on first, over to the side a little bit. Like so. I'm doing this a little differently than I normally do, so I'm going to go ahead and change this over so you can see it this way. Okay, so I'm going to change up my plan here. I'm going to do bottom to top, like so. Move my ink over here so it's a little more accessible. I do the outside first because of all the ink that's on my brush. Then I move in and do the other part. A little bit more paint outside because there's a lot of ink on the brush. And I move in and do the other part. Careful I don't splash the ink on in little dots like I just did there a little bit. Outside first. So. Outside. Come in here for a detailed. This one's a lot easier to paint than the other one. These little valleys, if you really wanted to, would soak up a lot of ink. I am using a magnifying glass lens here to help get a little bit more accuracy, so that I can get in there and not miss any spots. I've seen some amazing design work from some of these people on YouTube. I'm just surprised at the quality of some of the work. I mean, these guys are just artists. Anybody can just take a brush and just apply dye to a pattern that's already established. But there was this one guy that literally did a painting on the dye of the Incredible Hulk, which I thought was really cool. How detailed and beautiful it ended up being. Now the nice thing about doing the black like this is if you wanted to put another color after the fact, you could. And it change the color of the black because it's already black. If I wanted to lay down the foundation here of black and then run another color all in the grooves and stuff, it wouldn't run it. It's the beauty of black. A little bit too close there that time. Used up all my ink on the back side.
In this situation, you can actually lay the black down first and then put the other colors on, or you can do it the reverse. You can put the other color down as a base color and then put the black on after.
Here's the first side. See? Come back down here. Do this little bit here.
On the actual project,
This is the trickiest part right here. Just that little bit right there without getting it on the grade.
I'm doing this part of the video in time lapse just because it's literally an hour of painting, and unlike the stamping, it's pretty much the same technique over and over again. As I showed in the short video, the technique here involves painting just the outer edges and in between the braid pattern with just black. I've already got the base coat down. The base coat was green, and then I put Resolene and then antiqued it. Now I'm just painting all the black vertices. And as you can see, when I'm doing the center of this, when you put your brush into the little ink well, you're going to have a lot of ink on there. And if you try to go right into a little detailed area, there's a very good chance that ink, because it has the viscosity of water, or just slightly thicker than water, will roll off into the pattern itself, and then you can actually destroy your project immediately just by having too much ink on your brush. That's why I'm putting the excess ink in the fill area, the space where it's unlikely to drain down into the pattern and destroy the pattern. Like here where I lay the dots down, I'm actually getting rid of the excess ink when I lay those dots down in the center like that, so that when I go to do the edges, I don't have too much ink on the actual brush itself. Yeah, it gives me a lot more control over the detailed aspects of this painting. Believe me, you do not want to get halfway through a project, have too much ink on your brush, and then when you try to run right into a detailed area, right along an edge, it leaks all over the pattern, because ink, God, it's extremely pervasive. Trying to get it off of something, even with Resolene on it, you could try rubbing alcohol. That is a possibility. The problem with using rubbing alcohol is it could actually take out the color, it could take out the dye, and create like a light spot on there. It's not going to have the uniformity, more than likely. Just it's extremely difficult to fix the problem when you get ink in an area you don't want it to be, and it changes the color or pattern and creates a glaring error mistake. So that's the technique that I'm actually employing here to make sure that doesn't happen. As you can see, the short video I did before, I zoomed in and showed the actual detail work so you could see how that's done. And as I said, you can do it one of two ways. You can lay the base color down, do your coats of Resolene, and then do the black, or whatever color you're going to be doing. Or you can do the black first, lay your base, your Resolene down, and then just roll in the dye into the braided section, because the dye is not going to change the color of the black and vice versa. the black will be able to cover the dye. That is actually, as I said over and over again, I know I keep repeating myself, but it's a problem that I have. What are you going to do? That's the advantage of using black. Now I have to admit, I do not like the antiquing effect that was produced here. You can see it's kind of a little bit smudged in areas because the antiquing gel didn't stick very well, or it stuck too well and it didn't come off. And the reason why it does that is because you can have a sheet of leather, and one section has a little bit more pores than another for whatever reason. I'm not sure why. But if it has these little tiny pores that are a little bit too big, then that antique gel can actually get into those little round divots, and then you can't get it out of there very well. And that's where you get the smudging from, is this section of the white leather had a little bit more deeper divoted pores that collected that antique gel in and then created a sort of blackish patina. To be perfectly honest with you, I wish I hadn't done the antiquing on this particular project. And if I do this again with one of the other colors, I'm definitely not going to antique it. And I'm just going to stick with the two contrasting colors and leave it at that. So that's the technique for laying down dye. Now there is a scenario where you can actually dye contrasting colors without even using Resolene, but I'm telling you it is extremely difficult to do without a problem. And you always get bleed through. The Resolene helps to keep the dye from bleeding through, but it can be done. I'm not going to say it can't be done. And if you just, here's how I would approach that, is I would do the base color in green, no Resolene at all, and then try to paint the black lines and see if you get bleed through. If you get bleed through, then do a couple of coats of Resolene on the inside, and then dye the inside black so that the black doesn't bleed back through, but you also get to cover the black splotches that have come through. And that would allow you to hopefully keep from having to antique it and even possibly create a pattern without any Resolene at all. For those purists out there that don't really want to use an acrylic finisher, that would be the approach I would use. But at the very least, you're probably going to need some kind of a finisher on the inside to help keep that inside color consistent and uniform. So I'm getting really close to being finished here. As you can see, I'm on about the last line or two. And ultimately, this is the first time I've tried to dye this particular pattern. Well, this is the first time I've even used this pattern, let alone trying to dye a contrasting series of lines with this pattern. So, and when you're setting the task of painting something with dye or paint, sometimes you have to develop a technique that works for you through practice before you finally get what you want. And that's okay. It's okay to have to practice it and work it out. And there you have it. There's the final product. Now I'll lay Resolene on it and go to the next step.